Hello, this is Riana here from Next Gen, and today I'm here with your weekly tip. I am going to be talking about how to get the most of your tiny and mini practices. So let's dive in. I have a special place in my heart for tinies and minis. I've had the pleasure of coaching right from tiny all the way through open. I love every single age group. There's definitely certain parts of tinies and minis that I absolutely love. They are full of energy. They love you as a coach. They look up to you. They want nothing more than to please you. But guys, I get it. Tinies and minis can be intimidating. They can be take a lot of energy to coach, and sometimes they're a challenge, right? And so I wanted to give you some of my tips on how you can get the most out of them. The one thing that you have to understand is that the things that are causing you the most frustrations when dealing with tinies and minis are things that you should expect. They are developmentally appropriate. With those age groups, they have lots of energy. They're going to want to run around. They're going to want to jump and bounce while you're explaining things. They're going to take things very literally. So sarcasm and stuff like that doesn't work. You have to teach them the appropriate behaviors that you want to see in practice, and plan your practices and run your practices so that it is fit for their age groupings. So let's dive in. Here are my top tips for working with tinies and minis. Number one, be fun, be relatable, and be engaging. You have to be in there with them. You have to get excited about things when you're explaining something. Find ways that you can engage with them. When I'm explaining, telling them to do certain things, or explaining a circuit, I'll always say, all right, we're going to do, and hold my hand up, and they have to say 5 jumping jacks. They are at that age where they will have a hard time sitting and listening and taking it all in unless you are engaging them in some way. So find ways to do that. If you're wanting them to start in a lunge, then I always say, we're going to start in a, and they repeat in a lunge. And so find ways to do that with them. Number two, threats are not the most effective way to get stuff out of your athletes at that age. So saying something like, all right, if we're not going to stand clean in 10 seconds, then we're going to do 10 push-ups. They don't quite understand that. But if to go along with that, you use praise or encouragement as a way to see a behavior that you want them to do. For example, you say, all right, let's see who's going to be the first one to stand clean. And then it's Susie, and you say, hey, thanks, Susie, for standing nice and clean. I am willing to bet that you're going to suddenly see the rest of your team standing clean. So that's the next piece of it, guys. Use praise as a positive way to encourage the behaviors that you want to see in them. Number three, use cues and classroom anchors to get their attention. So I'll often say 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, or anything like that, that if you can hear me, touch your nose. If you can hear me, touch your ears. If you can hear me, touch your knees. And if you can hear me, quiet please. So any of those really cute kind of classroom anchors that gets their attention. Never talk over them. Always, before you explain something, get everybody's attention. Make sure they're looking at you, make sure they're standing, and make sure that they are paying attention to you and not bouncing around. If you start explaining something and there are kids that are not looking at you and not paying attention, they're not going to hear what you explained. You're going to get frustrated. So you have to make sure that you get their attention first before doing that, and use stuff like classroom anchors. Next one, change activities every 15 to 20 minutes with them. So at that age, it's hard for them to stay focused on one particular task for long periods of time. So if you're going to do stunting, stick to stunting for 15 to 20 minutes, then transition into jumps training, then transition into a tumbling training or something, but they're going to have a hard time staying focused for those long periods of times. And find ways to make sure that there are few kids standing around. They should always be busy. As soon as you have kids that are not doing something and you're expecting them to sit for long periods or stand for long periods and stay focused, then they're going to start to get unfocused and start goofing around and start running around and start chatting with friends. And so you have to make sure that you provide those times that you're changing the activities consistently and they are always doing something. The next thing on here, use games, contests, and fun within your practices and be creative with it. It doesn't have to be elaborate. So even stuff like we have big Lego blocks here, and we'll do any stuff like every time you hit your stunt, you can come get a Lego block and let's see how high we can pile our Lego blocks and how high we can build a tower. Or we'll even do, when we're running routines, we have a bunch of extra practice bows laying around, and we want to encourage kids to be clean and to work on performance or whatever it might be. And at the end of that run through, we'll stick 3 to 4 bows on the kids that were really working hard and displaying those things that we wanted them to work on to wear for the next run through. It's amazing when you start to have some fun within your practices and provide those kind of engaging opportunities for them, the more they're going to work and then the more fun that they're going to have. So those guys are my top tips for working with tinies and minis. Again, find ways to be engaging, find ways to be fun, find ways to be relatable with them, and get in their practices. Make sure that you are changing up your activities with them consistently. And remember, guys, stuff like threats with that age group, it just isn't that effective. So hopefully that helps. Reach out if you have any questions about working with tinies and minis. I'd love to chat with you.